So today we have Art Stout here and two of his current and past clients that have gone through his process with him, and they're going to talk a little bit about what that process looks like and what they've learned. Before we do that, though, I'm going to give each of them a chance to introduce themselves. So Art, we'll start with you. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself and your company and how you help other companies?
Okay, thank you for having us. First, a big thank you to Robin for all the work she put into making this happen. So she did the heavy lifting. So I am the founder of Stout Associates. I want to thank Paul Bell and Rod Winter for sharing their time and thoughts today. And I also want to introduce Connor Serkitich and Dennis Backus, who are handing out a flyer with some of the information that we have, which will give you more detail. And in the interest of time, that's going to tell you a lot of what we do. So I also have to thank Tom Kintis for inviting me to be part of his businesses. Thank you, Tom. So the automotive information on the flyer that Robin put together is there because that's where I learned the craft that I do. And the programs were fairly sizable, and we had to be successful. So what do we do today? We maximize production to maximize earnings. That is what we do. I think that's the simplest and the clearest.
Thank you, Art. So then, Paul and Rod, I'm going to have each of you introduce yourselves and your company, and then share sort of one metric or KPI that shows like the biggest impact of what the results of working with Art has been. So, Paul, why don't we start with you?
Sure, sounds good. Thank you all for being here. My name is Paul Bell. I am very blessed to serve as the Vice President of Law Tanning Company. We are a fourth generation leather manufacturing company, or a leather tannery. We're one of the last remaining commercial leather tanneries in the United States. We're down on 16th and Pierce, continuing to carry on the tradition, the rich tradition here in Milwaukee of manufacturing leather. So we don't make leather goods, we don't make shoes and belts and things like that. We manufacture leather that then people turn into the fine leather goods that you may wear or sit on in a car or that type of thing. And I would share that I sum it up like this. Art, with his help, took the largest bottleneck in our company, the largest bottleneck in terms of a cell, in terms of a production area, largest contributor to a long lead time, and improved productivity by about 50%, and took it from something that I worried about every single day, that I checked in on every single day, that I've probably hounded the guys and drove them crazy every single day, and took it to something that I do not think about. It's something I don't have to consider because I know the process is complete and good, and in terms of productivity, the numbers speak for themselves, and it's something I no longer have to manage on a daily basis.
Thanks, Paul. Rod, what about you?
My name is Rod Winter. Thanks for having us here today. I'm the president and CEO of RCS Innovations. We manufacture wood products, especially fixtures for the retail industry and other commercial markets. So we brought Art in and just right after COVID hit in March of 2020. And he helps with a project, we called it the Clean Sheet Plant Layout Project. And the results were pretty incredible. I'll just share a couple of the metrics with you. And it all has to do with, we completely transformed our manufacturing operation from batch manufacturing to what I call flow manufacturing. So first of all, we were able to reduce our manufacturing footprint by 60%. That allowed us to sell a 120,000 square foot facility and reduce our debt by $4 million. We increased our manufacturing labor efficiency by over 40%, and we added 10 points to our gross margin. So it was a pretty incredible result that we achieved.
Yeah, so some pretty powerful numbers. So let's just take a step back from that end result and go back to the very beginning. So Paul and Rod, for each of you, what was the catalyst or the immediate need that you sort of identified that caused you to reach out to Art to begin with?
Sure. So our company, post-COVID, like many companies, kind of cliche to hear, struggled. We struggled with top-line revenue, struggled with sales. We got pretty slow, and I'm relatively new to manufacturing, but I learned a hard lesson, which is allowing a production floor to slow down and get inefficient. Yeah, it's like the worst thing that you can possibly do, right? And what happened for us was about a year ago, we had an uptick in business, which was a good thing. General uptick in business, maybe 5 to 7% across all of our customers. Great, we were happy about that. Then we got good news on a large customer that was about a 20%er as well, that landed in our lap, that we had to work around and work into the process as well. And so what that did is it caused lead times to grow. Our inefficient production floor continued to be inefficient, and we were really struggling to see a way out of it. We were struggling to see how we're going to rise to meet this demand. How are we going to, have gross profit at a place that it should be for a company like that? And we had one area that we identified that we felt was maybe the largest contributor to that. And for this discussion, we call it the blue room. And in the blue room, it was the largest contributor to increasing lead time. And it was extremely inefficient from a process standpoint. And we had some ideas on what we wanted to do, but we really had a hard time mapping them out and really identifying where to start and what to attack first. So through the wisdom of some of those in the room, they passed the name of Mr. Stout along. And
That was Tom and Mark. It's their fault.
It's their fault. That's right. They're the reason I have to deal with him all the time. They gave us Art's name, and Art came in and really helped design a physical process layout, physical process improvement plan that we wanted to put in place. So that's how we got started.
And Rod, what about you? What was the catalyst for
Yeah,
reaching out?
the catalyst was really two things. Number one is we started with the premise that we had excess real estate for the size of our company, and that's not an easy problem to deal with. And the other thing is when you look at our manufacturing process, we had 2 manufacturing plants. So in one manufacturing plant, we built all of the parts and pieces, machined the pieces in batch mode. All of our machinery was grouped by department, which is the traditional way of doing things. We would then load those parts and pieces on a truck and transport them across the street to our other plant, which was 120,000 square feet, where it would sit on racks for a while, probably get damaged, and then eventually it would get final assembled. So you don't have to be an expert in lean to see that we had some serious waste going on there. And of course, the common denominator is Mr. Kintis suggested that we bring Art in and help us with that layout project, which turned into so much more than just a layout project. What Art did is he really taught our people the building blocks of lean. And without that basic training, we could not have achieved the results that we did.
So Art, where did you start when you walked into both of these 2 companies and met both of them for the first time and heard their initial stories about what they thought the problem was? What's your process for starting with companies like that? What was the first thing you did?
Well, the first thing is a walkthrough. And in the walkthrough, the first thing that I look at are the operators. And you look at what's the value-added portion of the operator work and what's the non-value-added. So as far as defining what the solution is, I don't really worry about the solution. I know the opportunity is there. If I see a lot of waste, I know there's a lot of opportunity for greater output. So now we talk to them about putting a team together. And it is then from their team and their engagement that we now go, what is really the item that's going to be the biggest impact? If we fix the slowest process, we're going to increase the output of the business and the revenue of the business. And if we don't increase labor too quickly, we're going to also increase the earnings. So that is pretty much the process that I start with. And I've been asked by Tom just to go in and look at companies and look at buildings and tell me what you see.
Yeah. So one of the things that we talked about, so once you identify that there's an opportunity, something that needs to be tackled, and maybe your leadership team is aligned and you're aligned with Art, then there's the challenge of aligning everyone on your team in the plant and the challenge of that. So looking at people and process. So how critical, Rod and Paul, was it to get the rest of your team on board with what you were about to embark on? Start with Paul, go ahead.
Well, it's extremely critical, right? I mean, it's very cliche, but if you don't get buy-in from the people on the floor, you'll never get anything done. So we had an idea of what we wanted to do, and it wasn't perfect. Art helped us refine that. But I think what was most impressive about what has been one of the most impressive things about Art is his ability to get buy-in from people. He has clear experience in what he does, and he demonstrates that to the people on a daily basis. I like to say to people when I'm talking about Art is he's not afraid to ask a dumb question. And I don't mean that poorly. I mean that in the sense that, when he came to our building, he didn't know anything about leather, of course. Most people really don't. I barely do, and I've been there for 9 years. And he's not afraid to stick his neck out to ask a dumb question, to learn something in order to understand what's going on in the building and to get on the level of the people that that are already there. So it's a huge part, and he demonstrates that by really kind of rolling up his sleeves and not being afraid, quite literally, to get dirty with the people going through the process, to say, well, listen, I'm not just dictating from above. I'm going to get in there with you, and I'm going to prove to you that this works by going through it with you. So that's been a huge, huge piece.
Yeah, exactly what Paul said. Art has the ability to relate to people in manufacturing. And the reason for that is he's been in the trenches. And employees know when people are faking it, and Art is the genuine article when it comes to manufacturing, and so forth. And so he quickly built trust with our team, and getting that buy-in was absolutely essential. And that was really a really fun part of the project is to see the light bulbs go on, and we had some people that were they had the attitude like that'll never work. So we had a lot of obstacles and barriers to overcome. And to see some of our more experienced employees slowly but surely come around to what Art was saying was really, really fun to watch. And then Art is also a believer in giving people knowledge and then applying the knowledge. So he would take, complex lean issues, not all that complex, but, there's a lot there. And then he would say, let's go to the floor and give this a try. And that was also very important to our success.
Yeah, so Art, what is your process for getting people to buy in? Or maybe you shouldn't say process, but what do you do to help people buy in?
So we have to find within the projects something that we can accomplish in a matter of hours. So in the case of Rod's situation, there was one particular table for this particular customer that was a repetitive piece. And so we used that, and then we had to say, okay, what's our current hours? How much are we putting into it? And then we're going to just do a quick rearrangement. This is all happening within a day. And then we're going to have the guys do that new process, and what are the hours. So now we have a comparative that we can demonstrate and say, this is this, and here we at. Here's where we're at, or what we wound up at. And it's still not where it will be, but it'll be 50% reduced in hours. And then the other thing that we'll do to engage the rest of the plant, because the team is a smaller group, is we'll create a situation where they can pick a number. What do you think it's going to be? And we engage some of the other people in the building that way. So similar things with Paul. We would do time studies. Industrial engineering is a critical piece. And find ways to say, okay, see what you did. Not I did, what you did. So we have to demonstrate it.
And you both talked about going through this process. There was kind of like a eureka moment for your whole team, where you were kind of pushing them to get on board with this, and then all of a sudden it kind of like clicked for people. Either one of you, can you kind of describe what that moment was like and what it took to get there?
Yeah, for us, it was really, so Art taught really 3 key concepts for us, and they fit our business quite well. Number 1 is cell layout. Number 2 is one-piece flow. And then the third one is multitasking, basically separating man from machine. So in batch mode, you have one person and one machine, and that person's job is to crank out a pallet of parts. And then you're left with a very complicated routing or dispatching system to get it to the next operation. So for us, the big leap was to get over all the obstacles like that'll never work, a bunch of batch manufacturing people, and saying we're committed to one-piece flow. And that was the big turning point for us. And then we decided to completely change our manufacturing layout. We moved all of the machinery into the order of the manufacturing process, so that materials flowed from one operation to the next in a very seamless fashion. The second big moment was everybody was thinking that there was no way we could fit all of the manufacturing into one building, that being the smaller building. Everybody had a mindset like, well, maybe it would go into the bigger 120,000 square foot building. But the team decided that with a few modifications to the building, we could actually put everything into the smaller building and still have excess capacity to grow the business.
Yeah, it's nice to hear from other manufacturers things like the things that they hear from their people, like no way will that work, because sometimes we think that that's unique to our own building, but we all have the same kind of problems. Yeah, for us, it happened pretty quick. I remember the very first day we made a physical footprint change, we made a physical process change, which, you know, in manufacturing, change is really easy to accomplish, and everybody gets on board right away, of course. And quite literally, I had folks throwing leather onto the floor. We moved a little bit to a single piece flow in one of our operations, and right at the start, within 15 minutes, yeah, things got a little wonky. Leather's getting thrown on the floor. I have guys throwing their hands up. I mean, they're threatening to basically to walk off the job. This will never work. This is ridiculous. And I think about 2 weeks later, after not hitting our production numbers in that department for who knows how long, we did it. You know, we hit our numbers. We hit the goals. And you know, just walking around, it's just like you're looking at guys that 2 weeks ago wanted to wring your neck because you brought a guy like Art in to make changes and they never thought it would work, to now saying, I can't believe we got this done. I mean, 2 weeks, you know, is a long time, but it's not that long. And to have people's mindset change that quick, that okay, maybe this will work. And that's really been that early 2 weeks, that early success was really the leap to what we've now grown into with Art in our building.
So single piece flow is a concept that was sort of implemented in both your companies, and I believe it's kind of a core principle that you live by and work with. If you want to share a little bit what that is and why it's so important, and why it's so important for helping companies actually identify bottlenecks.
Okay, so another way of saying it is touch the part only once. So the first piece is standardization. And we want to standardize what we're doing, eliminate all the non-value added, and then the single piece flow allows for the fewest touches and the greatest throughput. Your quality is at the source. You're able to make your changes right then. If you need to adjust, you're not building any inventory. So you're now able to eliminate defects, and there's been some substantial defects that have been eliminated. So that all becomes the result. And the benefit is you probably can increase your output 25% or more with a single piece flow, with the same people and the same equipment.
So listening to both of Rod and Paul's stories and just all of the other manufacturers that you have worked with, what are some of the common patterns that you see popping up with all of them? What are the similarities?
Well, I think when you're not efficient and when people are working at their tasks, they're not really satisfied if they're running into problems, whether it's a quality defect or just getting an output. And so I'm going to change this to when I started as a production manager, I had my manager saying, you need to get more out. And I'm using the existing process, and I always thought there had to be an easier way. And then I start just by saying, you got to watch what the people are doing, and are they creating value or not creating value? If you walk into a plant, you can see, just by doing that, what it is that is the opportunity in the plant. I mean, sometimes you're going to walk around your plant and you're familiar with it, and you know that he's watching the machine not working. There's a lot can be seen just by watching the people. In some cases, you're going to have to do a little bit of an assessment. Sometimes we have more machines, and they have two instead of two, they should have one. And the reason they put the second one in is because they couldn't get it enough out, or they thought a superstar machine, which was extremely fast, you would see that it was extremely fast, so now you brought that in and you now created a whole bunch of whip. So what I see, the most common failure for earnings is production management saying I need more people, and earnings decline. The second most is I need a new or a different or additional machine, and earnings actually decline. And the third is I need more space. So those would be the three common things that I would say I can see.
I'd like for each of you to, Ron and Paul, to sort of share what you expected to happen when you brought Art in, and then what actually happened. And then the second part of that question is, if you could go back to your past self and give yourself a kick in the pants to do this a little bit sooner, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah, I think what we expected was, Art would come in and we'd all sit around a table for a period of time, and then presto, we would have the ultimate plant layout on a sheet of paper. And obviously that's not what happened. What did happen is Art came in and helped us train our employees in lean manufacturing and how to apply that knowledge. And I think the biggest takeaway is that, this is an investment that goes on forever, because what it did is it helped us transform our culture. We were wanting to build a continuous improvement mindset type of a culture. And that just took that whole program to another level. So those, those investments are still paying dividends for us.
I think similarly, we expected Art to come in and implement a physical process change and a physical layout change. And we did that. That was great. We sort of thought it would start and end there, and that would be all well and good. And really, the word used was culture. Interestingly, Art has helped shift our culture from a culture of like, yeah, that'll never work, we can't do that, we can't do any changes, to like, well, maybe we can. Maybe we haven't thought about every way that we can tackle a project. And so that's been a really interesting shift out of people that I never, ever thought would have that kind of shift, and myself included. You think you know everything, and I think to that last part, what I would tell myself to maybe start sooner is you think you know everything, right? You do something long enough. What is a guy that doesn't know anything about leather, what is he going to come in here and teach us how to do? We run pretty efficiently. The company's been around a long time. What could he possibly benefit us with, and just getting out of your own way to say, maybe we just need to look at things just a little bit differently. Nothing super complicated. Sometimes it's just observation, like Art said, just paying attention to what people are doing. But I think just getting out of your own way and saying, you know what, and we talked about it earlier, hiring experts that know about what they know, because you can't possibly know everything and can't tackle everything all at once. And I think that's what I would have told myself to get started sooner.
Yeah, and then Art, just to put a bow on this, for manufacturers that might be interested in the services that you provide, what are kind of the questions that they might be asking themselves right now? You touched on it a little bit, but if you could kind of repackage that, like what are the sorts of starting points that you like to come in and help with?
They're on the flyer. It's I can't produce enough. I'm not performing as I should. I can't find enough people. Those are some of the big ones. And it doesn't just end up in manufacturing, it's also in information flow. And we have done some things where we are automating the design process, the sales quoting process, and because that too can be a bottleneck. And so the question to anybody is what is causing you the biggest amount of pain? What's keeping you up at night? And sometimes what you think might be the problem may not be that, but if you think there's a problem, just ask me to walk through your plant. I'll be happy to do it and talk with you.
All right, thank you to our panelists. Thanks to everyone for coming. Thanks to partners for being here.
Thank you, Robin.